Hi students, this is Mrs. Johnston again, and today's lesson is on pectin. So we're still in our unit on complex carbohydrates, and pectin is an example of a complex carbohydrate that we use oftentimes when we make jam and jelly. And Aubrey's going to show you, we've got 3 different kinds of pectin on the table. We have Kroger canned gel, we have Ball brand fruit pectin, and we have Ball brand liquid pectin. We also have our sugar measured out, and behind each of these we have a jar of cherries. So I have had these in my pantry, and I am going to make 3 different batches of cherry jam using 3 different types of pectin, and we're going to see if there's any difference in how those pectins affect the texture and the taste of the cherry jam. So pectins are very important, as we said, for jam and jelly because they allow the jam and jelly to set or firm up. And this is done because of a reaction between the pectin and the sugar and the acid in the jam and the jelly. Now, pectin is found naturally in many fruits. In fact, sometimes you don't even have to add pectin to your jam or jelly recipe. You can just simply cook the fruit and heat it up, and you can get that pectin to activate, and you can get the pectin to thicken all on its own with just a little bit of sugar added to it. So that's why sometimes we use the term cherry preserves or peach preserves, because what we're talking about when we have that kind of an item is something that we didn't add extra pectin to. So you can even do this with strawberries. You can just mash your strawberries, add sugar, and cook them for a long time on heat, and they'll actually thicken up because strawberries have pectin in them naturally. Now pectins, as we said, react when heated, so you're not going to be able to get any kind of reaction if you just throw the pectin in cold. You have to heat the pectin up. That's going to expand the molecule so that it can absorb water. And you also have to have sugar and acid to get that reaction to make your jam and jelly set. And this is why recipes have to be followed exactly, or your chemistry is going to be off and your jam and jelly is going to be runny. It won't set up. Now, we find this type of pectin in the peels and the cores of a lot of fruit, so it can also cause problems. For example, if you wanted to make something with a fruit and you took all the peels off of it. For example, if you have apples and you take the cores out and you take the peels out, well, guess what? There's no pectin left in the apples, and so that's why applesauce will be very runny. On the other hand, I made some crab apple jelly last fall, and I left the cores and the peels on the crab apples when I heated them up. And then I filtered that stuff out later when I made my juice, and that pectin was in the juice because I heated up the cores and the peels and the pectin came out. So it's really interesting how you can work with fruits and sometimes get a lot of pectin in your recipe and sometimes not much at all, depending on if you peel them and take the cores out. So we're working with cherries that have already been heated up and canned, and so for that we're going to have to add a little pectin. So we're going to use these 3 different kinds, and we're going to see how those 3 different kinds of pectin result in different jams and jelly, or different jams with these different kinds of thickenings that they're going to do. So again, we've got liquid pectin, we've got real fruit pectin, and we've got canned gel. We're going to see how those all turn out. All right, so I'll be back in a little bit to show you the 3 different jellies that we get. Okay, so the first variation of jam for the cherry jam that we're going to make is with the liquid pectin. So I've measured out our cherries. We needed 4 cups of cherries, so that's exactly what I had in the quart jar there. A quart is equal to 4 cups. And so my next step is to smash the cherries. And I've just got a potato masher here, and I'm just going to go along and kind of crush up my cherries. Now, this is sort of a guessing game because I canned the cherries with added water. So I had to take some water off, but I didn't know exactly how much. So we've taken some of the water out of the cherries and left some of the water because if I took all the water out, the cherries would just be way too thick. Now, the next step is to add all of our sugars. This is 7.5 cups of sugar. So we're going to pour that all in, and we're going to put this on the stove and put it on high because we want to bring this up to boiling before we put in our pouches of liquid pectin. So a couple of tools that we're going to use for the jelly, for the jam making. We've got our canner full of hot water, and our jars are in here sterilizing right now. You always want to start with clean jars. We've got our lids on the back burner getting cleaned out and sterilized with the hot water. We have a funnel that we're going to use to fill our jars. We have a magnet that we're going to use to pick up the hot lids out of the water when the time comes. And we have our tongs that we're going to use to lift our jars. And we have our long-handled spatula. So this is what I'm going to use to stir the sugar and the cherries together. And again, this is going to come up to what's called a rolling boil, and that's one that you can't stir down. So if you can continue to stir and make the boiling disappear, then that's not a rolling boil. So I'm going to have to get this up to a rolling boil, and once I do, then it's going to be time to add the liquid pectin. All right, so we're going to take some time to get this up to temperature, and we'll be ready to add the pectin here in a little bit.